So I want to talk about Santa Claus for a minute. Where does Santa Claus live?
Wow.
North Pole. Duh.
Oh, yeah.
So the North Pole, you need to know the latitude of the North Pole. I think at what zip it. Everybody grab page 7 of your notes and read through page 7 of your notes to find the latitude of the North Pole. 90 degrees north. So there was a lot of different answers thrown out there just a minute ago. That needs to be straightened out. Unfortunately, I don't think it's anywhere. Let me just flip through the reference table real quick. I don't think anywhere literally says the latitude of the North Pole. Yeah, there is not one single place in here that tells you that the North Pole is 90. You would think these maps would have gone up to the North Pole, but if you notice, they actually stop at 70 degrees. Why? I have no idea. They just do. So this is something that needs to be memorized, the latitude of the North Pole. By the way, also the South Pole. You need to memorize that. Based on what we learned, 90 degrees south. I'm not writing it down, but you do need to know that. Based on what we talked about yesterday. So here's that globe. Once again, Logan, put those down. You need your packet and your reference table out. Santa Claus standing at the North Pole, which by the way is right here. Where does Santa Claus have to look to see the North Star? Straight up. So if this was the ground and this is Santa Claus, you guys just said straight up. You are correct. Santa Claus has to look straight up to see the North Star. What angle is that? If he's looking straight up, what angle is that? 90. So there's that 90-degree angle. So that's 90 degrees. Do you see the coincidence here? 90 degrees latitude, so 90 degrees north, and he sees the North Star at 90 degrees in the sky. Okay, there's one cool concept. So Santa travels all over the world on Christmas. And he has to deliver toys to the good little boys and girls of the equator. Okay? What is the latitude of the equator? That is 0 degrees. By the way, is it 0 degrees north, south, or east or west, or just 0? So remember that the definition of latitude was how far north or south of the equator the location is. So if you're on the equator, are you north or south of it? No, you're just on the equator. So the equator and the prime meridian, for that matter, don't get a label. They're just 0 degrees. That you technically don't have to memorize because on page 4 of your reference table, it does label the equator and it tells you that that's 0 degrees. So technically you don't have to memorize that, but I bet a lot of you already have. So when Santa Claus is at the equator, where does he have to look to see the North Star? Now, it's not quite easy as the North Pole to see, but if he was down here, I circled this spot right here. If Santa Claus was there and the North Star is here, he's got to look right along the earth to see the North. Oops, sorry, I'm moving. Right along the earth to see the North Star. So right along the earth means he's looking right along the ground, and here's the North Star. What angle is that for someone here looking this way? That's a 0 degree angle. Again, notice the coincidence. If you're at 0 degrees, you look 0 degrees out. Now we're going to move on to New York State. Yep, out our window. And we did talk about this yesterday. I'm going to talk about one thing that we didn't talk about yesterday. Where is New York State on this map?
Right, South, North American.
Okay, so that, yeah, good. So I'm going to walk you through a couple things. What continent are we in? On? North America. Anybody have a problem with North America over here, by the way? This,
It looks weird.
it does look weird. It does look weird. You're used to seeing maps that have North America and South America over on the left and Europe and Asia over on the right. We actually didn't get to this part yesterday, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But here's North America. The continent of North America should look familiar to you. Us in Western New York, we can actually pinpoint our location pretty easily on this map. Are there any hints that you see on the map on page 5 to help you locate us in Western New York? The lakes. So you should be familiar with the Great Lakes. You've lived here your whole life. Maybe you don't know all of their names, especially these 3 over here. They're not ours. When I say ours, I'm talking about Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. When you're in Buffalo, you're along the Niagara River that connects both Lake Erie to Lake Ontario. So right about here where the 2 lakes meet, that's us. Now it's not super accurate because it's a very big map or it covers a big area. So it's hard to say exactly where we are, but that is a very good, like, rough estimate of where we are. So anytime you see a map that has the lakes labeled, you can say, I live right about there where the 2 lakes meet, or at least that's where Buffalo is. So we need to figure out the latitude of New York State before we can figure out how high we see Polaris. So to do that, I have a system. Now, some of you might be able to do that without using my system, but I do want everybody just to at least practice my system once or twice so that you can kind of, like, if you follow my system, you're not going to fail this at all. So I always start by doing latitude. Latitude starts at the equator. And I always like to start at the equator because then I can decide right away, do I have to go north or south of the equator to get to New York? So what do I gotta do? I gotta go north. And this is part of my system. I label degrees north before I do anything else. I hate thinking about things twice. So if I already know I have to go north, I label it north and I never think about it again. So when I go north, I find Buffalo. Make sure you're keeping your ruler as straight as possible. Here's the 40. There's the 50. Is Western New York on either 40 or 50? Somewhere in between 40 and 50. So it's 40 something. I like to come over and mark like where I think the halfway mark is. Is Buffalo higher or lower than the halfway mark? Teeny tiny bit lower. So what do you want to estimate Buffalo at? 43 works for me. So New York State, specifically Buffalo, is around 43 degrees north. So, hey, by the way, when Santa's at your house, where does he have to look to see the North Star? Why 43? Because the rule is, the moral of this story is alt equals lats. The altitude of Polaris equals your latitude. So if we're at 43 degrees north, that's where Polaris is going to be. And just to make sure that you realize where about 43 is, well, there's the halfway between 0 and 90, which is, by the way, what's halfway? 45. So 43 would be just a smidgen below that. So this whole review here was to remind you that the altitude of Polaris is always equal to your latitude, no matter where you are in the Northern Hemisphere. Southern Hemisphere, where can they see Polaris? Nope, can't see it at all. So they will try to trick you and say, what is the altitude of Polaris for somebody standing in Australia? And how will you answer that? Can't see it. Yeah.
What if you're like on the equator, but you're on like a big mountain?
Still Just still go by if you're on the equator, altitude of Polaris equals 0. Does it mean you can technically see it? No, probably not. Even for us, if there's a tree in your way, you might not be able to see it. Oh, are you saying because you're on a mountain and the altitude, the angle will still be the same? Yeah. So you do it then, like the top, like pretend there was land at, yep. Because you're not going to be star level if you're on top of a mountain. So you're still gonna have to look the same angle. As far as I understand how angles work, so. Mrs. Ritz? Okay. Yep, bye. Bella, you're getting picked up. So just check, you just need to finish page 9 for homework. We'll get it started if you want to watch Teams. We'll definitely get it started. Everybody good? Altitude of Polaris equals your latitude. So, hey, what if we were standing on the Tropic of Cancer right here, labeled 23.5 degrees north. So how high would we have to look to see Polaris? 23.5 degrees. Altitude of Polaris just equals your latitude. That's all. So we just have to finish labeling our reference table here, which gets a little weird when we start doing longitude. This is kind of what I started to talk about earlier. So we already did latitude, correct? You guys wrote the equator in, and you wrote the north and the souths in. Then put your writing utensils down so we don't accidentally make a mistake. Grab your rulers. Find the prime meridian. But don't draw it in until I tell you you're right. So find the prime meridian on your reference table. There's spare ones here. You're sure you don't have it because I found it here. That's what we're looking for. And then this is the packet. So you have it, yeah.
It's in here.
This.
I didn't see no map thing.
Yeah, really not. Prime meridian, guys. I only see one person with the ruler on the prime meridian. Not you.
Oh.
Guys, go back to page 7 of your notes.
I know that 180.
Yeah, yours was at 180. Guys, can you please tell me the latitude of the prime meridian from your notes on page 7? 0 degrees. Not 1, and that's latitude. We're doing longitude.
You're right. Oh, you're right. Wait, bitch.
Correct. Did you guys find 0 degrees longitude yet? Where is it? Way over here at the edge of the map. Line your ruler up with the 0 on the top and the 0 on the bottom. Draw it in using, I prefer you using a different color than you used yesterday, but if you don't, it's your call. So take your time, line it up good, and draw in the prime meridian. We're going to go ahead and label it.
Messed up, they put it on the side.
I don't call them big old jerk faces for nothing.
That's to the right because it's
Yeah, so this is where I got off topic earlier. This is why North America looks so weird where it is on this map. Because North America will always have a longitude between 60 and 140 degrees west. It doesn't change on here. It's still in the Western Hemisphere, but they made it look weird. So kind of what happened is you're used to looking at a map with the prime meridian. So I drew that in on this globe. You're used to looking at the prime meridian in the dead smack center of the page. When the prime meridian's in the dead smack center, it's easy to do never eat soggy worms. Because no, it's not waffles, it's worms. I will go to the grave defending that one.
Pretty sure it's waffle.
No, it's not waffles. I could eat a soggy waffle, but there ain't no way I'm eating a soggy worm. If I have to eat a worm, it darn well better be deep fried and crispy like an onion ring.
Alright.
It's just what we're told, it's waffle.
No, you're cool.
Because your other teachers were not willing to talk about how you can eat soggy waffles, but you can't eat soggy worms.
Can't be soggy.
You can't. That's disgusting. I don't know how you do it on Survivor. A soggy worm would definitely not go in my world. So from now on, it's soggy worms and we're not just gonna argue about it. Your name's not on the door, mine is.
It's that deep, isn't it?
It really is. Have we already talked about creek versus crick?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's also crick. My name's on the door, yours isn't. So there's a
It is.
few things in the world that I will go to the grave for, crick and soggy worms. But
it's-
anyway,
But you're wrong.
whose name's on the door?
Last name. It could be your husband or your
It
mom.
is, but not the point. Still my name. It says same as on my driver's license. Moving on, now that we've got the important things out of the way. So what I was saying is with the prime meridian going down the dead smack center, it's easy to say east and west. Here, they make you stop and think about it. Still works the same way though. So when we're here on the prime meridian, if we go, and where am I getting this in case you don't know, never eat soggy worms. Okay, if you don't know that already, you can add it. But if we go to the eat side of the prime meridian, that's going to be east. I would add that label if I were you, east. Now, does that mean there is only that little section of this map that's east? No, remember guys, the world's a sphere, technically an oblate spheroid. But this line right here that was labeled 20 is literally the same line that's here. So you can actually see like Africa, for example, the rest of Africa is there. The rest of Europe is split here. So it is east over here until you get to the 180 line. And I would request you label it nice and big like that. So, or maybe write east a few times. So it says it all along the eastern side. So that whole section is still east, leaving from the prime meridian to the left until you get to 180. This section is west. So don't let the prime meridian being in a weird spot completely screw you up for this. Everything still works the same way. It's just you have to stop and look, am I in the east or the west? Don't just go with your gut that says the left side is west, the right side is east. It's no longer that way on this map. Did they change the world, by the way, by doing this? No, they basically just changed when they took like the picture of the map. So you're used to seeing the world here. They just drew the map when the world was in this spot. So again, they didn't change everything. Everything's still where it belongs, that just looks different on the map. Don't get hung up on that. So all we have left to do is practice this stuff. You need practice doing latitude and longitude. So that's perfect. You got about 20 minutes. I'm going to have you turn to page 9, which is where your homework's going to be. Your homework will be all of page 9, but you have 20 minutes to do it in class, and we're going to do Buffalo together right now. We already actually did the latitude, so please be careful. We always do the latitude first. It's alphabetical. That's, I think, how they decided. Latitude comes before longitude because of the alphabet. So you do latitude first. Remember, I had you go to the equator first and then decide, do I go north or south to get to Buffalo? I label that first. So yes, we're skipping Florida for the moment. So yep. So if you just wrote that in Florida spot, cross that up and go down to the New York spot. So I labeled north first, and we had already decided that the latitude was 43 degrees north. We already did that one. We did not do the longitude. I do the same idea for longitude. I start at the prime meridian and decide, do I have to go east or west to get to Buffalo? West. So again, I know it's weird. Check your labels. So you have to go west. And what'd you guys get? Yep. Oh, and I did forget. I do normally label that degrees west. And I agree. It looked like it was right on the 80. Now, Florida is the only other place that's not labeled on here. So are you guys familiar enough with North America to know where Florida is? Okay, it is the little handle here. Let's go with the southern tip of Florida. So the very, very, very end of that little handle sticking off of New York. Or not New York, North America. You knew what I meant. At this point, everything else is labeled on there. It is a little tricky to find some of them, but I know you can do it. So I'm going to let you go. You're welcome to work with somebody. Again, if you're working with somebody, don't you do half and they do half. Do them both and just compare your answers. Or if you're having trouble finding a spot, they can show you if they, by the way, like there's the Tasman hotspot. Hotspots are these giant sunburst things or starbursts. Kind of go with the middle of them if you can. If you can't, it's close enough. We'll be all right. So there you go. That's it for today. We're just working on finishing your homework, which is all of page 9, including the questions on the bottom, which actually use the map on page 4.